When you talk to proponents of President Trump's policies, they argue that these tariff policies and his trade policy more broadly is all about bringing jobs back to the United States. But when you hear from foreign companies, when it comes to their potential investment plans, a lot of this is really long term. It will take 4 or 5 years at a minimum for the auto sector, for example, to build manufacturing facilities in the U.S., shift their supply chains there. So when it comes to this bull argument around jobs in the U.S., what's the time frame if you are going to take that view?
I mean, the sorts of restructuring that they're talking about shifting the US economy from a consumer-driven economy to a producer-driven economy. Now, I can't think of any economy in the world that's more consumer-driven than the United States. So that's a massive change in the structure of the US economy. Even if everything goes completely to plan in terms of how it affects reshoring, you're talking 5-10 years. So the idea that you're going to see some benefits from this in the near term because US firms are more protected, you're just not going to get that relocation of factories closing down in Canada, moving across to the US. That's not something they're gonna do unless they believe this is a long-term, multi-decade change in US policy, which they just don't know. So I think it's pretty unlikely we're going to see big reshoring in the near term in the US.
Brian, it seems to me if we take away all the oscillation and policy back and forth, we take away all the angst transatlantic and the concern about traditional partners. For me, a lot of the US Trump policies comes down to one thing. Are Americans, and it kind of alludes to what you just said, are Americans willing to pay more for homegrown products? Are they willing to pay more for refrigerators made in the States, for cars made in the States, for homegrown products? Because that is the price of retrenchment from every economist I've spoken to, whether they're in favour of this or whether they're not in favour of it. Is it that simple? For me, it seems that simple in many aspects.
I mean, basically, you're looking at effectively subsidising producers at the expense of consumers. Well, good luck with that. I mean, the US consumer has benefited for 20-30 years from cheap goods imports coming from China, coming from the rest of the world. Imports are a source of supply. The US spends more on goods and services than the amount of goods and services it produces. So it's getting stuff from the rest of the world. That's a benefit to consumers. So to try and stop that is a major shock. And I don't see how the consumer can be completely indifferent to that. I just don't see it's going to work.
It's fascinating to think about that structural shift, the way you just described it, that what Trump's policies are doing are trying to change the American economy into a manufacturing-led economy, which is it's not what's led the U.S. to prosperity historically. At the same time, when it comes to Steve's point around the consumer, the old adage is not to bet against the U.S. consumer. It just continues to surprise time and time again. Why is this time going to be any different in terms of that resilience of the U.S. consumer? It's really part of the psyche in the U.S.
Well, their psyche has kind of been rattled recently. If you look at those inflation expectation surveys, right, they don't believe this story. They think stuff is going to get more expensive. Consumer sentiment has declined on lots of different measures. So. This is a really big change in the structure of the economy that they're aiming to achieve, and it's going to be a tax on consumers.